Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now on our 26th episode of 2024. Hard to believe that we are now about halfway through the year. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Five for Breakfast. I'm joining you today from beautiful Lima, Peru. We're holding our second um, FBA Latin America Fiber Connect event of the year. We had an amazing turnout yesterday. Our speakers included the telecom minister and a number of the region's top network operators. Today continues with action-packed agenda, including the FBA LATAM's latest research on the Latin America fiber deployment. Our next FBA LATAM event will be in Panama in October, so you guys might want to check that out. In Washington, D.C. today, the House is in session and the Senate is in recess. Today, the House Appropriations Committee will be marking up the Commerce, Justice, Science Appropriations Bill, which funds NTIA for fiscal year 25. So we definitely want to make sure NTIA is well funded for next year. Our next event in North America is our annual Fiber Connect 2024 conference in Nashville, July 28th to 31st. We're expecting record registration, or we're not expecting, we're seeing it. But we'll expect about 5,000 people will be there, as registration is running about 30% ahead of last year's record. So if you haven't registered, I would highly recommend you register ASAP to make sure you can get a room at the Gaylord. So we'll see you guys in Nashville. After Nashville, we'll be in Des Moines in September, Calgary in October, and Albuquerque in November. That brings us to today's Five for Breakfast session. Our special guests are Ray Monasterski, Katherine Songster, and our research expert, Mike Render from FBA's Marketing Committee, who will be discussing Net Promoter Scores, more than just a number, elevating the customer experience. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from our team, who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and good morning to everyone who's joined us today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a couple of logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, if everyone would keep in mind, you are in listen-only mode today. To ask a question, please type it into the question box, which is located in the control panel on the side of the screen. We will have a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's session. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. You can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate the input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to once again introduce our panelists and get things started. Gary?
Thanks, David. Good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week we had a special Five for Breakfast preview of Fiber Connect 2024 coming up in Nashville, July 28th to 31st, with Evan Friedman, our Fiber Connect 2024 chairman, and Rich Williams, our Fiber Connect 2024 program director. So if you want to hear what's in store for you in July in Nashville, check out the replay. Today on Five for Breakfast, our guests are Katherine Songster, Ray Monasterski, or Coach M, we'll call him, and research expert Mike Render from FBA's Marketing Committee. They'll be discussing Net Promoter Scores, more than just a number, elevating the customer experience. Katherine has over 2 decades of experience in public relations and marketing and serves as a communications director at Harrison Edwards. Her new role encompasses the creation, management, and implementation of dynamic strategic marketing and communication plans tailored to the specific need of multiple clients in the broadband industry. Katherine has a proven track record in helping her clients achieve earned media placements, successful thought leadership programs, and increased market shares. She also has extensive experience in community stakeholder engagement and helping to build coalitions to champion project applications and approval. Ray Monasterski is with Ask and is an accomplished B2B senior business developer and sales manager, and has acknowledged reputation for building strategic partnerships through consultative and collaborative team approaches. He brings 3 decades of deep experience in developing strategies in broadband, telecommunications, retail, and BPO environments while partnering with a range of Fortune 100s to SMB clients. Mike Render, who you guys all know and love, is the founder and CEO of RVA and is a recognized expert in North American fiber broadband rollout and a regular presenter at national and international broadband and smart cities conferences, as well as consultant to numerous public and private organizations in the fiber optic industry. The Fiber Broadband Associations, broadband communities, and many others rely on his research. Render has received numerous industry awards for his work in the broadband arena and for RVA's research influence on FCC policy, and is a broadband community's cornerstone recipient and a FBA strategic partner. So welcome, Katherine, Ray, and Mike. And for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and we'll jump into discussions. So I'll hand things over to Katherine.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Good morning, everybody. We're here to talk about Net Promoter Scores and how that relates to the customer experience. Earlier this year, we had the pleasure of Mike coming to our marketing committee here at FBA, we're all members on that, and presenting an overview of what Net Promoter Score is and how it's being used. And we found that very valuable. And we saw connections between that and sort of the larger discussion within broadband, which seems to be moving more and more towards the customer experience. I think we all recognize that it's now sort of the key differentiator. Speed and price are, being more commoditized, and this really we see as a path forward, not just for network operators, but across the entire ecosystem of the broadband industry. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And we just wanted to make the connection between the Net Promoter Score and customer satisfaction surveys and how that creates a relationship and a dialogue with your customer. And whether you are a network operator or a supplier or a consultant, you are touching various touch points along that customer experience, that journey, and that informs both the products and services that you're developing and the way that you interact with your customers. And unfortunately, Kimberly Biddy from EPB is not here today with us, but we have some statistics here on the slide that they did a study and found that 1 out of 26 customers will complain about a bad experience, and the rest will leave silently. And that means you've lost 26 customers, and then everybody that those customers are speaking to and talking about their negative experience. And then how does that, how many in your marketing and in your messaging, how many positive statements you have to create to neutralize even one of those negatives. So it's definitely something that we feel as a marketing committee that we need to be paying attention to. And we see it as something that Net Promoter Score is more than just a number. It's an opportunity to uncover and reveal insights that can help you improve your products and services and elevate fiber as a brand across the whole ecosystem. And so without any further ado, I will hand this over to Mike, and he's going to walk us through what Net Promoter Score means.
Great. Yeah, next slide. Just a quick overview of Net Promoter Score. Most of you know probably what it is, but basically it's a method where you ask people how likely are you to recommend this product or company to a friend or a peer. And you take on a 10-point scale, you take the promoters, the 9 to 10s, and subtract the detractors, the 0 to or 1 to 6 range, and get that score. And basically, the detractors, why you might ask why it's all the way to 6. There's kind of some grade inflation that people give too much leeway sometimes. So you're really concentrating with this methodology on the promoters, those who are extremely satisfied. And that's a good thing. We see a lot of correlation between those who are delighted and retaining those customers and positive word of mouth. So it's a good methodology. It's particularly valuable, NPS is, because it's used throughout the country and the world, and you can benchmark against other industries. Speaking of that, we'll go to the next slide, and it shows that our industry is actually towards the bottom, unfortunately, of the list. In general, has been for some time. Internet service and video transmission and communications. So obviously some room for improvement there. And next slide will show that we actually track this performance. Next slide. And we can show that fiber is, of course, beating all the other methods of internet performance. Wireless has gone up some. You can see 22 and 23, the fixed wireless component is even in some cases neck and neck with fiber for the short term. We think that's because we're getting out of such a poor experience before that. But overall, the trend is upward, which is good. Fiber is beating it, but we're still not showing world-class scores. It's only 20 points where you'd love to see a 70-point world-class kind of score, 50, 60, 70. Now, I will say these are blind studies, and blind studies typically are lower than if the company themselves were asking. There's a little bit of pressure upward to give a better score, so that's an individual company may see a little higher score. That all gets into best practices for this as well, which there certainly are some we may talk about, but you certainly don't want to see people calling and saying, hey, can you help me out and give me a 10? We really need unbiased scoring. So finally, in my section, I just want to talk about what drives scores. It's obviously the performance, the product itself, the fact that we have gigabit, the reliability the fiber has, all those things are great. But there's more than that needs to be dealt with. And trust is actually one of the top ones that comes to mind when we have looked at it and others such as Qualtronics. Trust. What's the character of this company? Are they really going to be loyal to you as a customer, stick with you, not pull some bait and switch activity? So that comes to play. And of course, care is important. Do they solve problems? And the final thing I will say is that we also see cases where if there is a problem, but the company fixes it well and quickly, and that company actually will have a higher NPS score for that customer than a customer that had no problems whatsoever. So there is an opportunity there. So with that, Catherine, I'll turn it back to you and get into some examples and so forth.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. I think it's important to talk about that trust factor is really driving those NPS scores, because we understand that as related to branding, which is really, it's a conversation about branding at the end of the day. You are establishing a relationship, hopefully, with your customer. You're providing them an opportunity to provide you with feedback and have a voice, and you're hopefully listening to that and developing trust and loyalty, which, how does that correlate to the things that we care most about in broadband? We hear everybody talks a lot about customer acquisition, but we also have to think about customer retention over time. And that is very much about branding. What does branding mean to everybody? We know in our own daily lives, the choices that we make as a consumer are dictated by many things. And a lot of that from the vendor side, the supplier side, the network operator side for broadband should be about really having that dialogue and relationship with your customers and understanding what are their needs and what are their wants and being responsive to that. And we believe that NPS is an avenue to do that, and through these customer satisfaction surveys. And if we can, for a moment, get beyond just the number and really start to think about what does this feedback from our customers, what does it illuminate, what does it reveal for us in terms of insights? And I know in the industry, we all love our data and we all love our actionable insights. And this also applies to our marketing and our branding. And Ray and I are going to speak a little bit about some of the clients that we work with. I also have some input from Kimberly, although she's not here, on how EPB is using NPS. And then we'll talk a little bit about what the marketing committee is planning on doing with all this information and really why we're all here this morning. So Ray, is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, being you asked, Catherine, yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us here. So where we are as a BPO contact center solutions provider, what we do is, you could say, is really the sausage being made, okay? At the end of the day, our partners look at the NPS number, But what we do in the contact center environment is contribute to where that NPS number or CSAT number or CSI, wherever those metrics end up. And so both Mike and Catherine touched upon that there's a piece called retention, and that's where customer care really comes into play. And that's a big part of what we do with our partners. And there's always so much focus, it seems, because I guess it's the glamour part of things. When it comes to marketing, we created the most beautiful mail piece. We're running the best TV ads. At the end of the day, when, as Catherine said at the beginning, we've gotten to a commoditized world in this sector, and it's a very competitive environment. So people are moving from their incumbent services to a broadband provider. The sales part is easy because y'all are winning it on price, really. And, people who want to make the move because they've got some sort of dissatisfaction where they currently are. But it's the retention piece that's really going to drive that customer experience. And that's why it's so imperative that as you're thinking about your strategies, that you look at what are we doing at every touch point that we possibly can have with a customer. And that should be sort of a ubiquitous or a pervasive sentiment within your organization. And it starts at the top, and it should go down to all levels. We're certainly a part of it because we're the front line for many broadband providers. And basically, the goal is to consistently deliver brilliant or excellent customer experiences, because all that then eventually feeds up into the data that creates an NPS score. So things like first call resolution, very important. We use AI to our advantage to create sentiment scoring, which then that's how we evaluate the interactions on our end. It also helps to create efficiencies. We're seeing that average handle times are going down because of the fact that we have all this great technology at our fingertips that help drive the conversation and ultimately lead to the resolution of a customer's issue. Mike touched upon getting a customer's issue resolved. We just had one recently with one of our broadband partners who's a member of the association as well, where a customer had a major issue, and it happened to be our rep that handled the call, and she resolved the problem immediately, first call. And what the customer did was she wrote a note to the senior leadership of this particular company. So as you're thinking about this, branding, commoditization, you want to create evangelists for your brand. I mean, think about, we all know about evangelists, and but think about what they do. They're basically a promoter for whatever they're promoting. That's what you want. You want your customers to be your brand evangelist.
Right. Let's talk about how we do that
Right.
using this tool of NPS, because I think, many people are approaching it in different ways.
Right.
And I know I can at least speak on behalf of one of our clients, Utopia Fiber. They've been doing a customer satisfaction survey for over 10 years. And so they see it, it's done yearly, and they see it as a real opportunity to have that conversation with their customers and provide a voice. They incorporate some of the things that Mike's talking about with this 0 to 9 scale or 0 to 10, but they also have open-ended questions, which really provide an avenue for customers to really, if they're so inclined to write in an answer, that's the goal that you're discovering through going through this exercise of having these surveys, because you really can uncover not only trends, but you can see where you're going. And I think people are hesitant often to probably pursue like NPS. I mean, it's hard to understand what it means. How does it relate to what we do? But I think the good news is that by having this dialogue with your customer and getting these insights back, you can make real-time changes to your customer experience, to your products and services. And that, as you're saying, Ray, builds those brand ambassadors, ultimately, the people that will go out and talk positively about you. And, what we're finding with the work that we do at Harry is that, more and more of the buying decisions that consumers are making, and even within broadband space, are based on referrals of friends, families, neighbors, colleagues. And so that positive word of mouth is really important. If we go back to that statistic that we showed in the first slide, we don't have to go literally back, but I'll reference it, is just that if one person is going out there and talking negatively about you, that really has a compounding impact. And that can be difficult to turn around from a marketing perspective. And this input that you're getting, like even at EPB, they use NPS as an indicator of brand loyalty and trust. And they see it as a moment in time. And I think it's important to make that distinction. It is a survey, and it is a moment in time. And there's debates about how frequently one should do it, but I think it is understood that you should do it more than once, and hopefully on somewhat regular basis, whether that's annual or not. And I think that being able to have those touch points and get that input back is really going to make your marketing and your customer experience that much greater. And so I think it's important for people not to be dissuaded by the number, but to really understand what the opportunity is that it is providing for you. And we believe as a marketing committee that that's very important. We just I think we could even go on to the next slide, David, and talk about what this all means. We are, as a committee, undertaking a project to help sort of distill and explain what Net Promoter Score is, and how we believe it can be applied across the broadband industry, the whole ecosystem, and why we believe it's a unique opportunity because of fiber and because of its technology and its superior technology. We have a real opportunity here to elevate that. And Mike shared, that our scores in our industry tend to be on the lower side, but we see that as an opportunity. And most people who are doing these surveys also understand it as an opportunity to embrace this feedback and to pivot and to iterate and to be better. And Net Promoter Scores, they can ebb and flow. And again, it's that moment of time, but it's that check-in with your customer. So what we're doing as a committee is that we are going to be hosting a discussion at Fiber Connect during our marketing committee meeting, and you can see on the slide it's on Monday, the 29th, and we welcome anyone who wants to come by and talk about this with us. We are going to be moving towards a survey of the FBA membership. We know that people are engaged in NPS in different degrees and from different approaches. So we're really looking to get information and input back from FBA membership on this. And then we will have a survey of the membership. And then from that, we are looking to develop a white paper on some recommendations to try to move towards more of a standardization of how we as a broadband industry, fiber industry, can utilize the customer experience and NPS and all of these great things that are available to us and uplift the entire industry. And so that's our pitch, and we hope that you all out there listening are interested and that you will get involved, because this can only take shape with input from all of you out there.
When you think, Katherine, consumers are pretty much trained to, when you go on Amazon, you only buy the products that have the highest ratings, and you get your Airbnb, you only look for the 5-star places that have the most ratings, or your Uber driver, pretty much everything in life. So I would think that Net Promoter Scores would be really critical. One of the questions that came in is, so what percentage of the total population should be questioned to get a 90 to 95% confidence level in your Net Promoter Score analysis?
I'm thinking that's a Mike question.
Well, it's not necessarily percent of the of your population. More than that, it's just the size of the sample. You know, the bigger the sample, the better. But if you could get a 500 or 1,000, that's wonderful. Um, it decreases the range of error that you call sampling error that's in play.
Ray mentioned CSAT and CSI, and so one of the questions that came in is there a correlation? What you got all these different things. How do these relate to NPS?
Well, I think that they're all measures, Gary, and everybody, that you have to sort of take a look at the total picture. Now, of course, NPS is very important, but if you're really serious about keeping on a great track with customer experience and delivering brilliant customer experience, you really have to look at everything. So whether it's the NPS score, CSAT, CSI, your surveys, your online reviews, take a look at what's being said about you on social media. But usually when the NPS score is high, everything else is high as well. I mean, at least that's what we've been told as we have these discussions with our partners. So there are some. I mean, we'd have to really take a more granular look at the data, I think. But there are definitely correlations that show that they do have a positive effect, or they do have a negative effect.
Mike, in your chart, even fiber, which is the best of the worst, I'll call it. It was pretty sawtooth and kind of not just linear up to the right. So one of the questions that came in is, what trends in the industry most impact the fiber providers' NPS? Is it speed, reliability, ease of doing business, or what is the magic sauce there? I think Katherine mentioned trust. And how do you earn that?
Yeah, we've done some regression analysis. They all come into play. All are important, but that trust factor actually does rise to the top, just because in the past history of our industry, people have had some problems, so they're looking for somebody that they can rely on. But obviously, the number of outages they have, how fast they're reacted to, that's very important as well.
While I'm not a fan of cable, I am a cable subscriber at our beach house, and Comcast did a really nice job they sent an email saying you have an outage, and then our text message, and then they gave an estimate of when it would be cleared, and then they actually sent another text in advance of their estimate saying, okay, it's all cleared, and this was what happened. So I think that transparency seems to go a long way to earning trust.
And communication is the underlying thing there, and definitely
and
people are forgiving when you're honest.
Yeah, and using technology as we have it available now, having an app showing the tech truck is on the way like Uber does, or using AI to find the problems even before the customer notices them. All those things are important.
I was really impressed with Render Networks at our Little Rock event when they talked to just how important it was just on their deployment of being able to have a lot of transparency and saying, hey, here's where we are in deployment, here's when we're coming to your neighborhood, here's what to expect. And then, as they tear up start plowing in fiber, they're saying, okay, here's where the restoration process. And so it seemed like that really changed the, consumer perspective of knowing exactly when things are going to be disrupted, when they're going to be fixed, and how how they're going to benefit. So it seems like that transparency is key. One of the questions that came in also is, our company does NPS surveys, but getting a response is very difficult. So any tips on to improve response rate?
I think that's its own webinar in itself, honestly. But what I will tell you, and I've heard Kimberly at McKinley at Utopia say this, is that they get a 10% response rate on theirs every year, and that's very high. And she said one of the first indicators is are people taking your survey? Are they taking the time to even fill it out? And that's a reflection on your brand, and that's a reflection on your marketing and the things that you're doing. So it's a great place to start. And hopefully, you'll be hearing from us in the coming weeks about this initiative, and we encourage you to get involved because we certainly want to tap the mind share of FBA members and develop a list of recommendations that can uplift all of us.
Well, fantastic. Well, thanks, Catherine, Ray, and Mike. Really appreciate all your contributions on the FBA's marketing committee and your insights on NPS with our audience today. And I want to thank our audience for joining us today and look forward to getting back together next Wednesday, where we're going to have a fireside chat with Jimmy Todd, the CEO and general manager of Nextech, a rural operator in Kansas. And Jimmy just happens to be the chairman of Fiber Broadband Association. So he's a very colorful guy. If you haven't met Jimmy, and you'll definitely see him at Fiber Connect in Nashville. So we'll see you guys next week. So I'm signing off from Peru and look forward to getting back to the good old US of A. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.